Okay, if you have your Bibles, turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 4. We'll share a few things with you this morning. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, starting with the first verse. Therefore, seeing we have this ministry, as we have received mercy, we faint not. We have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but the manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. But if this gospel be hidden, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. What we see that Paul was someone that preached boldly. Paul was not someone that he wasn't very sedate. He wasn't very orderly maybe, but he preached the gospel with authority and with boldness, because this was really important. This was the most important thing in Paul's life. And he knew that he had to tell people about Jesus Christ, about the word of Jesus Christ. So this is what he done, very boldly and very, dramatically. He would proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ because he had received mercy. Someone that has received mercy knows how to give mercy. Well, we have all received mercy of Jesus Christ. We've all received forgiveness. So we should be able to understand other people and have mercy on them. And Paul, having received this, he knew this. See, Paul preached as someone that had just been pardoned from prison. He preached as someone that once was held captive, and there was times that he was, but in reference to someone that had committed a crime and had been thrown into prison, and all of a sudden, he's pardoned, and he's released. Because actually, that's what has happened to us. We was guilty of sin that we couldn't pay, but we have been pardoned of our sins through Jesus Christ. And Paul, realizing this in his life and in his ministry, he preached with that type of boldness. Nobody wants to go back to prison once they get out. Well, I say that, I'm not sure that it's that way anymore, because some people get out of prison, they never change. They have an opportunity to change. They've been given mercy. Sometimes they don't take advantage of it, and they wind up right back where they came from. But for the most part, anyone that has spent time in prison would not want to go back to prison and stay there for any length of time. They just wouldn't want that. And Paul preached with that authority, with that boldness, because he had been set free by Jesus Christ. Paul had found a very great treasure. He found that treasure in the Lord. And because he had found such a great treasure in the Lord, it was just too good to keep to himself. Once in a while, you just find something that is just too good to keep to yourself. Like extra fluffy Egos. They're just too good to keep to yourself. You just got to share it. Anyone seen that commercial where the guy's in there and he's eating these extra fluffy Egos, and he goes to the bedroom, his wife's still asleep, and he wakes her up and shoves one in her mouth, and then he just grins real big. It's just too good to keep. Well, let me tell you something. The gospel of Jesus Christ is too good for us to keep hidden. It is too good for us not to share with other people. It is too good not to tell people about Jesus Christ. Throughout your day, whenever you stop and think about it for just a few minutes, you're talking to a lot of people, and sometimes you see people with a lot of hurts. You see people with a lot of anxiety, a lot of disappointments, a lot of failures in their life. Well, you have the answer. You have what they need, and that's Jesus Christ. It is just too good to keep. You've just got to share it. This is what Paul's ministry was all about, was sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. He just couldn't keep the gospel hidden. Now in Matthew chapter 9, it tells of Jesus that he healed these two blind men. And he told them, now don't tell anyone. You know what? They couldn't help it. They did. They just couldn't help not tell someone. Jesus didn't want them to talk about it because he was already starting to gain popularity and fame. He wasn't here seeking popularity and fame. Jesus wasn't looking for that. I know there's a lot of people that's what motivates them is the fame and the authority and all that. Jesus wasn't looking for that. And he wanted to keep it, kind of quiet because it wasn't time for all this to happen yet. So he told me, he said, don't say anything. Don't tell anyone that they had just received their sight. It's just too good not to tell. So naturally they went out and they told. But Jesus wasn't looking for that. He wasn't looking for the recognition. See, honor and glory is like a shadow. It flees from those that follows it, and it follows those that flee from it. And sometimes we've got to keep that in mind, that we're not doing this. We don't preach the gospel. We don't sing our songs. We don't come to church. We don't testify of the Lord in order for us to gain any honor or glory. We want him to receive all of it. We just know something that is just too good to keep. A woman one time, after our service, she was a visitor out here. And I know we're a little country church. We're kind of off the road. And, we're not in a real plain view. And she came to one of our services. And when she left, she said, do you realize this is the best kept secret in the area? Well, it kind of made me feel good, but then it kind of made me feel bad. Because we're kind of hiding what Jesus is doing. We need to let the world know that Jesus is alive. That Jesus is still saving people. We need to let the world know that we're here to minister to them. Not for fame and glory, not for our own selves, but so that they can find the gospel of Jesus Christ and find his love for them. See, verse 3, again it says, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that is lost. When you hide the gospel in your life, when you hide it and you don't share it, then you are not allowing the lost to hear about Jesus Christ. We're to hide it in our hearts, but we're not to hide it in our lives. We should have it hidden deep within our hearts, rooted and planted, but not from our lives. Our lives needs to reflect the love of Jesus Christ. See, if we hide the gospel, then we hide the good news, because that's what gospel means. We don't want to hide the good news. And I know we live in a world where good news is not all that plentiful, and good news is really probably not what a lot of people like to hear. They like to hear the bad things. But it's time for them to start hearing the good things. It's time to start hearing what good is going on in this world, what God is doing in this world, what God is doing in our lives and in the lives of others. We don't want to keep it hid, but we want it out there for people to see. See, Paul showed Jesus because of one reason. He wanted to reach the lost. He wanted the people to come to know Jesus. That's the reason why he did what he did. See, Jesus said, or more of a command actually, in Matthew chapter 28, Jesus had something that he wanted to say, and it was something that he wanted the church and his people to do. And it says in Matthew 28, verse 19 and 20, go you therefore and teach. Go and teach. Go and teach the good news. Go and teach the gospel. Go and teach about Jesus Christ. And where do you do it at? He said, do it in all nations. Everywhere around the world. In all nations. Baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. This is a commandment that he's telling us to do. Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I'm with you always, even to the end of the world. Teaching them what? All the things that I've told you. Everything that I have said. Well, what has Jesus said? You want to know? Right here. You can hear, you can see, you can feel, you can touch the things that Jesus has said. I notice verse 3 and 4 again. It says, but if the gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, but in whom the God of this world has blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. If the gospel that we live, being saved through Jesus Christ, if this gospel that we live and that we preach, and we are all preachers in our own way. You might say, well, I'm not a preacher. Yeah, you are. Every place that you go, you're preaching. Every place that you go, you are sending out a message. Basically, that's what preaching means, is to deliver a message. Your life is a message to the people around you. So you are preaching or sending a message to everyone around you. So if the gospel to live and preach be hidden, then we are actually playing into the hands of the God of this world by contributing to spiritual darkness. If we hide the gospel, then we are contributing to the work of the devil, because that is his desire, is for people to live in spiritual darkness, for them to live in a place where they don't hear about Jesus Christ, where they don't see the working of Jesus Christ. See, Satan lays beneath all false teaching and spiritual darkness and all the things that happens in this world. And he's there to blind the minds of the lost. Now, it said blind the minds. It didn't say blind the eyes. But to blind the minds, to change the way that they think. So the Bible tells us that we are to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. In other words, not to be carnally minded, but to be spiritually minded. So if the enemy can keep people in a secular mindset, keep them away from the things of God, keep their mind upon other things, then he's doing the work that he wants done. But we can stop that by not hiding the gospel, by letting this gospel go forth from us. The lost, sometimes even young Christians, particularly the lost, reads the lives of the Christians. They see us more than what we know. They see us more than what we realize. They watch us more than we know. Everything that we do, someone is listening to what we're saying. Sometimes it's little children, sometimes it's other adults, sometimes it's people we work with, sometimes it's people we associate with. When we go to Walmart, when we go to the grocery store, whatever, we are portraying either the gospel, the good news, or we're playing with the hands of the enemy. And sometimes it's the little things that we do. We don't even really think about it. Like when you sit down to eat a meal at a restaurant and you take time to bless it. You don't think a whole lot about it, but there's people that's watching and people that sees it. There's one thing that I started doing, and I really hate doing this because it really aggravates me. It kind of goes against my nature, but I started doing it, and I have to actually blame Joyce Myers because of something that she said. When I go to Walmart or the grocery store and I push my stuff out in a cart and I unload my cart in the car, it has always kind of got to me because, see, they're cutting down on workers. Now, I'm kind of getting personal here, trying to get my own thoughts here. Usually you wind up sacking your own groceries, you load your own cart, you push your cart out. You know, they just don't have nobody helping you like that anymore like they used to. When I was a kid, when I was younger, I stood there at the end of the line and I sacked people's groceries and I rolled them to the car, put it in the car and come back in. That was one of my jobs. Well, nowadays it doesn't work that way. So for a long time, I would take my groceries, I'd take them out, I'd put them in the car, and I'd just shove the car over kind of to the side. Let somebody else worry about it. I'm not going back in there. But Joyce Meyer said one time that the right thing to do was to take that cart and push it back into where it belongs. I don't want to do the right thing on this because I'm still aggravated that nobody's taking the time. Well, you just got to do the right thing. Sometimes you just got to do what is right whether you really want to or not. So, some time ago, I started doing this. I will take the cart and I'll push it back in. I will take it in and put it back in the store, or I'll put it in where the cart belongs or whatever. Just because it's the right thing to do. And I've actually had people see me doing that and then walk back and grab their cart and go and put their cart out. Because they realize, well, It's the right thing to do. Another reason the cart ran away one time and put a dent in my Mustang, and that kind of aggravated me. So anyway, that's another whole story, another whole message. But people are watching. See, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 2 says, "Ye are our epistle written in our hearts, known and read of all men." The only Bible that most people will ever read is you. You are a walking Bible to the world, a walking testimony, walking good news to the world. And they see and they watch you and they see what you're doing. And because of this, you can change someone's life. Sometimes a very simple thing. We prayed over a meal one time at some restaurant, I forget now, and this couple come up and she said, "You don't know how much it thrills me to see people still praying over their meal." It makes an impact. Little things that you don't even know about, you don't even think about. But you are a walking testimony for Jesus Christ. Don't keep the gospel hid, but let people see it. Let people see the love of Christ in your life. Let them see that you love the Lord, that you're going to do what is right, no matter what. You just got to do what is right. That's part of being a Christian and showing a life that is pleasing to Him. Come on, Chris. I'm done. Whenever we do that, then we're no longer hiding the gospel, but we're letting people see the gospel. That's the way we win the lost. Sometimes we think the only way we win them is by going up and asking them if they're saved and all of this. Well, that's one way. But the other way is letting them see the love of Jesus Christ in your life. Letting them want what you've got. I worked one time, I'll tell this right quick. I went to work as a young man at King Press. The guy who was training me, we'd work together till about noon. And he looked at me and he said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I said, "Yeah, you can." He said, "Would you by chance be a Christian?" I said, "Yes, I am." He said, "I thought so," because he said, "We've worked together all day, and you've not said any cuss words. You've not got mad. You've not thrown anything. You've had a good attitude." And he said, "I just thought maybe you might be a Christian." That's really the best compliment anyone can pay to you is if they see your life and they say, "There goes someone of integrity. There goes someone with character. There goes someone that loves Jesus." That is the most important thing.